It started on one of those soft California afternoons when the sunlight spills across marble floors and makes every shadow look longer than it really is. I wasn't supposed to be there, not in that part of town, not wearing a hand-me-down uniform that smelled faintly of bleach and lavender. But life's funny like that. You end up exactly where you're needed, even when you feel invisible. I'd been working at the Langley estate for almost a year, cleaning, cooking, babysitting when no one else wanted to, all while trying to keep my own head above water. People assumed I was just another maid, another woman without a story, but inside I carried more fight than anyone suspected. And then that day in the garden, the fight finally came out. The twins were running circles around the fountain, little Liam with his toy jet, Isla with a crown of dandelions, and I was chasing behind, laughing just enough to keep them going, but scanning every corner like I always did. My grandma used to say, if you're the invisible one in the room, you see everything. She wasn't wrong. That's why I saw him before anyone else did. A man in a dark jacket crouched by the hedge, a flash of white van doors swinging open. At first, my brain refused to believe it. A kidnapping. Here in broad daylight. But then I heard Liam's startled yelp and instinct took over. I kicked off my shoes and ran. "Hey, let him go!" I screamed, voice raw. The guy spun around, mask pulled tight, eyes cold as slate. He hissed, "Walk away if you want to live." His hand twitched and a knife glinted in the sun. I didn't think. I lunged. The blade cut across my forearm, hot and shocking, but my grip on Liam didn't break. "Run to the house," I shouted at Isla, shoving Liam toward her. The masked man snarled, "You're dead for this." But just then a voice thundered from the terrace, Mr. Langley, the billionaire himself, shouting my name like he'd never said it before. Sirens in the distance, my blood on the grass, the man bolting toward the van. That's the moment everything changed. Suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. Suddenly, I was the headline. The police came, cameras flashed. Mr. Langley shook my hand for the first time instead of brushing past me. But while everyone else relaxed, something about the whole scene kept scratching at me. That man knew exactly where to go. He knew the kid's schedule. And later, when Mr. Langley's younger brother Jackson showed up calm and smooth like always, I noticed the thin red scratch running up his wrist exactly where I'd clawed the kidnapper. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself I was imagining things. But the next night, as I brought tea to the library, I overheard him on the phone. "She's a problem now. We'll handle her." My breath caught. I must have made a sound because suddenly Jackson was in front of me, eyes hard, voice like ice. "You like to snoop," he said, and before I could answer, he backhanded the tray out of my hands, tea shattering on the floor. "Stay in your place." I stumbled back, heart hammering. For a second, the old version of me, the one who kept quiet, who bowed her head, almost took over. But then I thought of Liam's little hand clutching mine, the look in Isla's eyes, and I knew I couldn't stay silent. That night, I called Detective Harris, an old friend from my neighborhood who owed me more than a few favors. Over the next week, we dug. Offshore accounts, shell companies renting vans, payments timed perfectly to the estate's staff schedules. Every lead pointed back to Jackson. The night we planned to confront him, I barely slept. I wasn't just risking my job. I was risking my life. Dinner was set in the grand dining hall, candles, flickering silverware lined up like soldiers. Mr. Langley at the head of the table, Jackson at his right, me standing by with a pitcher of water. When Detective Harris stepped in wearing his badge on his belt, the whole room froze. "Jackson Langley," Harris said, voice carrying over the clatter of silver. "You're under investigation for attempted kidnapping." Jackson laughed, slow and low. "You've got no proof," he said, smirking at me. "She's just the help. No one believes her." My knees almost buckled, but Harris slammed a folder on the table, leasing documents, bank transfers, security footage. This enough proof, Jackson's mask slipped. He slammed his fist down. "You think you can take what's mine? This company was supposed to be mine." His voice cracked into a snarl. "I'll burn it all down before I let her." He stopped himself, but it was too late. The cops were already moving in. Mr. Langley sat there pale and shaking as his own brother was handcuffed and led away. I thought it was over. I wanted it to be over. But a week later, a note slipped under my door, read, "Jackson may be gone, but we're not done." My stomach dropped. Detective Harris said there was one man left, Clarence Doyle, an ex-military enforcer who didn't care about prison or police. He'd been seen near the estate twice. So we set a trap. I was the bait. The night of the sting, the garden was quiet except for the fountain's whisper. I walked the path barefoot, pretending to water the roses, knowing Harris's men were hidden in the shadows. My heart pounded so hard it made my vision shake. Then I heard the crunch of boots behind me. Clarence's voice was low and ugly. "Little hero," he said, "you cost me a paycheck." He stepped into the light knife drawn. "Scream, and I'll finish what we started." I didn't scream. "You don't scare me," I said, though my hands trembled. "You're just another man hiding behind someone else's plan." His eyes narrowed. "Brave talk for dead weight." He lunged. Floodlights exploded across the garden. "Drop the weapon," Harris yelled. Clarence swung at me anyway. I ducked and felt the blade cut air. Harris tackled him from the side, both men crashing into the fountain. Officers swarmed, wrestling him down, water splashing, curses flying. When it was over, Clarence was in cuffs, spitting threats as they dragged him off. I stood there soaked and shaking but alive. Mr. Langley came running down the steps and grabbed my shoulders. "I'm so sorry," he said, eyes shining. "I should have protected you." For the first time, he said my name like it mattered. But the world outside didn't suddenly turn soft. Reporters spun rumors, some calling me a gold digger, some calling me a hero. Online comments cut deep, people who'd never met me judging my motives, my past, even my skin. Part of me wanted to disappear. Instead, I showed up at the press conference. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. I told the story the way it really happened. Not for fame, not for revenge, but because the truth belonged to me. Something shifted after that. Mr. Langley stood next to me and called me family on live TV. Donations poured into the neighborhood center where I grew up. The twins sent me crayon drawings of me wearing a superhero cape. And yet, even as the applause rolled in, I knew this wasn't a fairy tale. Some people would never forgive me for stepping out of my place. Some people would always look for another Jackson. Still, I'd gone from invisible to undeniable. And once you've crossed that line, you don't go back. Sometimes I walk the garden at dusk, roses blooming again where the grass was torn up during the fight. The kids play tag under the same oak tree. Mr. Langley sits on the porch steps instead of behind tinted windows. We're all a little changed, a little scarred, but also a little freer. And here's the thing I keep thinking about: the first time someone threatened me, I almost backed down. The second time I didn't. By the third time, I'd already decided who I was. You don't have to be born rich or powerful or perfect. Sometimes being underestimated is the best training you'll ever get. So now I'm telling you, the person watching this, the person maybe feeling small or ignored right now, don't count yourself out. Don't assume the people in the big houses know more about courage than you do. They don't. Tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone underestimated and then they rose up? Have you ever been that person? Do you think our society still treats people like me as invisible until a headline forces them to look? Drop your story below. Let's talk about what real justice, real loyalty, and real courage look like. Because this conversation isn't over, not by a long shot.